So today we are going to look at how we can develop plugins. So basically, when you talk about plugin development, we need to look at three areas. One is how we can develop the plugin in any of the .NET languages. Second one is deploy and register the plugin with CRM system or server. Then debug it. So development includes you can develop plugins in any of the .NET compliant languages such as C#.NET or VB.NET. So basically, you will create a class for each of the plugin. Then you will build it, compile it, so that you will get the DLL. So that is the development part, making up the DLL. Then that DLL you need to copy it to your server if it is on-premise version. Then once you copy it to your server, then you need to register your CRM. Well, registration means you need to integrate your DLL along with your CRM system so that it will work as part of your CRM system. So as part of registration, you need to create a step also. Step is nothing but the event handler. So we have seen when we develop JavaScript, we have registered the JavaScript from the library as event handlers or functions. Similar way, once you register the DLL, that is nothing but the compiled code of your class. It may have multiple steps, right? Step means how it need to interact with your events. So when an account getting created, the event is what? Creation of account. That is the event there. So you need to register a step for your plugin so that whenever the account get created next time, the plugin will trigger. So we need to register a step after we have registered the plugin. So two steps are there in the registration. First is registering the plugin DLL. Second one is registering the plugin step. Third one is if any issue happen with your code or plugin, then you need to debug the code. So there are different ways to debug it, online and on-premise. The options to debug is different. Now let's see how we can develop a plugin. So by definition, plugins are custom classes that you implement using plugin interface. We will see that. So you can write plugin in any of the .NET compliant languages such as C# or VB.NET. And also you need to add two primary DLLs. One is Microsoft.xrm.sdk.dll and other one is Microsoft.crm.sdk.proxy.dll. These are the assembly references that you need to add to your Visual Studio project. So these are the assemblies that can be found in the SDK bin folder of your SDK. So before you're going to start the development, you need to download and install SDK to your machine. So you can look for MSCRM SDK. So with each version of CRM release, Microsoft release one SDK also. So what is SDK? Software Development Kit for Microsoft CRM. So it contains code samples, contains guidelines, tools, and all other software that you need to develop and extend Dynamics CRM. So you can download it for free and you can use it. Once you download it, you need to extract your folder. Right, it will come as this is the file that you download. Here you go. Yeah, this is the one, Microsoft Dynamics CRM 2016 SDK. So what you need to do is, this is an application file now. You need to just open it, so it will allow you to extract it. It will extract to a folder. So you'll get a folder like this. So these are the components of your SDK extracted. You will have bin folder where you'll get a bunch of SDK DLL. So this is the DLL we are talking about now. These are the primary. So this is the most important one. So this contains the methods and interface that you need to do in order to develop plugins and custom workflow activities. So here this is the other one, xrm.sdk.proc. Then we got a bunch of them again that is very specific. xrm.sdk.deployment for deploy related tasks. When you create custom workflow activities, you need to use xrm.sdk.workflow. So these are the SDK bin folder. Similar way, we have resources where you can see the image folders, what all used in the Dynamics here, and the data map, data import map, export ribbon files and all that. Then we have sample code where we have different folders for codes in C#. Where you can see codes for Azure plugin. You can see the plugin code also. We'll have multiple solutions. So this is a solution. This you can use. See, we will use that sometime. Then same way, custom workflow activities, XRM tooling, reporting, or field security, all the sample code we have. Similar for JavaScript, VB and all that we have in this sample code folder. Then you have schema solutions. Then you have other important tools. There you can see plugin registration tool that we use in order to register the plugin and customer flow activities. Same way we have some more tools like configuration, migration, metadata browser and all that. Okay. Now here we have one file known as message entity support for plugins. So this gives you a list of all your entities and the messages or events that is available for each of these entity types. Here you can see the message name, that is the event, and for which entity that is available, and what is secondary entity, all that. So you can see, for example, assign operation, it is available for this many entities. Yeah, same way we have associate, qualify, whatever you want, you see in your CRM system. Oops, I need to say qualify, lead qualification, the lead, then delete, create, almost all operation you see, you will have it. Yeah, message entity support for plugins, that you can find directly inside your SDK tools folder. Okay, so that's about SDK. So now we were talking about adding the DLL. So these two DLLs are, you can find it in the sdk.bin folder once you download your SDK for Dynamics CRM and extract it. Then let's see the sample code. Okay, so then you can go ahead and create one plugin. So this is one sample code we have given here, one of the very simple plugin to start with. So here we have added the namespaces. I believe you are aware of basic .NET coding. So these are nothing but the very basic system namespaces which will give you all the classes, methods and interfaces in order to do the coding. And then we have, this is the one Microsoft Dynamics CRM namespace, Microsoft.xrm.sdk, and this is one custom namespace that they have created. Okay, so now basically we will create a class where we'll give a name to it. So the name of this class is follow plugin, and that is implements one interface, plugin interface. So this is basically included in this namespace. So it's giving a lot of methods that we need to implement. So the very major method that we need to implement is public void execute. So it take a parameter IService provider. Okay, so what this plugin basically does is, this plugin that create a follow-up task activity when a new account is created. So we will register this plugin on create of account, so that whenever a new account is created, a follow-up task will be created and that will be linked to your account. That's what we are doing. So now most of this part that you are seeing here are all sample code. So here this line of code we use in order to create a tracing service. What is tracing service? Save all the tracing information or as a log file, so that whenever any errors or anything happen, when you want to debug, you can go to that log file and you can see the information. So that is known as tracing service. So this tracing service also comes from srm.sdk.dll tracing service. We are creating instance of that one from service provider, from this object parameter creating service provider.get service of tracing service. Okay, this is a standard line of code. Then we are getting the execution context. So execution context means when the plugin execute, right, for which organization we are running this plugin, who is the current logging user, what is the ID of the current logging, all this information will be included in the context. So again the context we will get from the service provider. So for plugin we will get plugin execution context. If it is a custom workflow activity, it will be workflow execution context. It would be workflow context. Then we are creating an instance of it, plugin execution context equal to plugin execution context service provider dot get service of plugin execution context type. This is a standard line of code. Then what we are doing is we have input and output parameters. So I'll go back to the slide and explain that. So the plugin execution context contain information that describes the runtime environment that the plugin execute. Information related to the execution pipeline, the business entity, for which business entity we are we have the event triggered, and all that information. So the context is contained in the system.iService parameter that is passed at runtime to a plugin through its execute method. That is evident. So this is how we'll create the execution context. Before that, it's talking about iService provider. So iService provider parameter execute method is the container for several service objects that can be accessed within a plugin. So it contains instance references to organization service factory, tracing service, execution context, and all that information. Then we have organization service. To access Microsoft CRM organization service, it is required to create an instance of the service. So this is the line we use to get the organization service. Organization service factory, you create an instance of it from the service provider.get service. So once you get an instance of organization service factory, then we can create a link to your organization service. So we need to explain a little bit of theory over here. So what happened is, in Dynamics CRM, whatever operation you do, even when you are creating an account or updating a contact record or whatever, everything that we access, the database will access from CRM through a web service. That is known as CRM web service. There are three types of web services, or the major one is organization web service. So even if you are doing anything, whenever you say web service, for example, if I'm accessing anything over here, this is a retrieval of data from CRM database. So what is happening at the back end is, the system will make a retrieve request to CRM organization service, and that organization service will interact with the database. From there you are getting the access. So organization service will authenticate your user, and depends upon the privileges and access that user has, the database data will be pulled and displayed to the user. So normally when you hear web service, we have an understanding that APIs or web services are used in order to link with external application. For example, I'm trying to create a new account. It will send a create account request or a message to CRM web service. So CRM web service will check whether this particular user has a privilege to create a contact. It will check it. If the user doesn't have a privilege, the user cannot do anything. It will show a message error. So even when you are developing plugins or custom workflow activities, we need to access the CRM web service first. That's what we are doing here. So first we'll use an organization service factory from service provider. So we have the instance of service factory. Then using that one, we are connecting to the organization service. Organization service equal to service factory. That is the instance we got. Dot create organization service of context user ID. So the context will contain the present logging user. Dot user ID mean it will give you the user ID of the current logging user. So now we have created a connection with the CRM web service. Now you can do any operation. Service.create means creating something. Service.update means updating something. If I'm saying service.delete the GUID of one particular account record I'm giving, if the user has, this particular user has privilege to delete an account, the CRM, it will send a message to CRM service and it will delete it. So that's how we are doing. So this is the code to connect to your CRM service. Okay, so clear. So why we are giving the context of user ID? Different user have different privileges, right? So now if I am a normal user and I don't have access to delete an account, then if I'm trying to create a link to organization service like this, and after this I'm doing service.delete an account, it will throw an error message because this user, that is currently this user, doesn't have access to delete an account. That's why we are giving the current user ID here. If I am giving the context user ID of the admin directly here, then he will have access to everything. So using that I can do almost all the operations CRM system. Okay, that's how we'll create the organized service. Then we have input and output parameters. So what is input and output parameters is, let's go back to the code. Now here in this line of code, these two lines of code, what we are doing, input parameter collection contains all the data passed to the message request. So now imagine this plugin is executing. So what it basically do is, the context that we got here, that is a plugin execution context, will contain a collection of input parameters. So that contains all the information about for which entity the plugin got triggered, and what operation we need to do. So the input parameters contains a parameter known as target that indicate whether this plugin has a primary entity which is targeting something. So that means it contains target means it contains a value for target. It is triggered for an entity. That's what it means. And in the next line we are checking context dot input parameter of target is an entity. What we are targeting, the plugin is triggered for an entity. That's what it's checking. It has a target and whether it is entity. If it is an activity, you need to mention activity over here. Otherwise, if it is an entity reference, that is a lookup, we need to mention entity reference. Yeah. The next line to obtain the target entity from the input parameter. So now the target is an entity. Then using this line of code, entity is equal to context dot input parameter target. That will give you the entity for which we are triggering the workflow. In this case, it will be account, and I am getting an instance of it. Now entity means account for which the plugin is triggered. Then we are verifying that the target entity represents an account. Entity dot logical names is not equal to account. That means we will return it. We don't trigger this plugin. It will trigger. It will go to the next line only when the plugin is triggered for the account entity. Yeah. So now this line of code is only the new part. That is the logic for the program. That is, follow-up task activity will be created for the account. The rest of it also is standard code. Whatever you have written here, also the standard code. So here again, obtain the organization service reference. Then finally, it is creating the task. So this is where it is creating the task, and then here we have exception handling. So whenever any exception handled, what the system do, it will throw an invalid execution exception. So what is basically do this line of code is, it will throw an error message to the user. Whatever error message is given in between, it will throw that message. So whenever if any issue happened, then the system will show the error. An error occurred in the follow-up plugin. That's the error message. So whatever you do in between, the system will, you would have seen that business process error, right, with a red symbol. So this is the place where it will throw that one. So even if you want to use you want to show any message to the user, even if it's a warning or if it's a normal information, this is the way. So it always asks in interviews also how you will display an error message to the user using plugin. So this is the one, invalid plugin execution context and the error message. Then here we have a generic plugin exception as well. So what we're doing here is we are writing whatever error we have found, that is the ex.toString. So this is exception. So ex.toString will give you the exact error message that we are writing to the tracing. So tracing will make a log file where it will write. So tracing.trace means it will give you an error message. So tracing will be very useful when you use with CRM Online. We will see that after a while. So now we can see the logic of this plugin. So what I wanted to show you is, except this part of the code, right, and there is one line here, the entire rest of it is very standard. So when you write any plugin, all this information, creating the tracing service, context, the parameter, maybe here you need to change which entity you are checking here, right, which entity you are checking. This might change. Rest everything is standard. So only within this try catch you need to give in your logic. Okay, so now let's come to the logic. So here what we are trying to do is, we are creating a task activity to follow up with the account customer in 7 days. So how we are doing it is entity follow-up is equal to new entity. Yeah. So it's a new entity of task. So this is the entity type and entity we have given here. So we are creating a new entity with the name follow-up of type task. So basically we are creating a task as a name as follow-up. Then follow-up of subject means this is nothing but every entity in Dynamics CRM is nothing but a class. So when you are creating an object of that entity means it will have all the fields of that entity, right? So follow-up of subject, I will show you that part. If you open up any activity, for example, let's open this one. Yeah, here we have a subject. So this is that field. So follow up of subject means it will access this field. Follow up of description means this. Follow up of regarding, follow up of duration, follow up of priority, follow up of due, activity start date, end date, all this information will be here. Oops. Yep. So we are filling up each of these information. Follow up of description, we are giving some information on that description. Follow up of start date, that means date, time, now, that means today, date, add 7 days to that. Date of schedule, end, we are giving today's date plus 7 days. And we have mentioned follow up of category is equal to contact.primary entity name. So that means it will give you the name of the account, yeah, or it will give you account details. That will be the category. Now what we are doing here in this 3-4 lines of code is we are refer to the account in the task entity. That means now we are given the information needed for the task entity. After that we are going to link this task entity with the account. Sorry, there is a link is created. So what we are going to do is, we have context, we already got it, the plugin context, which will always contain output parameter. Yeah, we are talking about input parameter, right? So we have seen it. So input parameter contain the data that is currently being processed by the execution pipeline. So for which entity we have triggered in the plugin, for which event, that all will be included in the input parameters. So one of the property of context request is known as target. So basically input parameters contain everything that is included in the request message, the message being sent to the web service through the event execution pipeline. And yeah, and there is an output parameter also that will contain information after the core operation has been happened. That means it will contain the response, request and response. It will contain the information about the response. So what we are doing here is, in this line of code, we are getting the output parameter collection that will contain a field known as ID. So this ID is nothing but the new ID created, or the new ID going to be. So this plugin got triggered on creation of account record, right? So now the account parameters will contain an ID that is nothing but the ID of the newly created account. So this plugin will trigger post to the creation of an account record. So definitely we'll have a new GUID created for that account, right? So that output parameter contains that one. Yeah. So now what we are going to do is, on task we will have a regarding field. So this is nothing but a lookup to any entity. You can select an account, or you can select anything else over here, right? I can even select a contact also, even bookshelf, then bookshelf records will come, I can link it. So that the GUID of that particular entity, if it's, here we need account, if I am selecting anything else, the GUID of that particular record will be linked here, right? The link we are making it here. So what we are going here, we have a class known as GUID, regarding object ID is equal to new GUID of context output parameter ID. So we are getting the ID, GUID of the newly created account here from the output parameters, and I am creating a GUID out of it. That means system will give you GUID, and I am converting that into GUID type. Yeah. So we are give the name as regarding object ID. So basically the schema name of this field, regarding field, is regarding object ID only. If you edit that form and go to this field of regarding, you will see that the schema name is nothing but regarding object ID. So I am getting the GUID of account record, then regarding object ID types I am setting into account. So what I am going to do here is follow up of regarding object ID, that is that field schema name, is equal to, I am creating a new lookup, new entity reference. That is the way you create a new lookup in the code. Here I am giving two values, regarding object ID type, regarding object ID. So here I am giving account as the type, and here I am giving the GUID of the account, so that this part of code will create a lookup with account, and that relationship, there is lookup value, will be added to the regarding object of it. That means there is a relationship is made. So we have done everything. So now we just need to do our operation. So we are getting a link to the CRM organization service using the user ID of the current login user. Now we are going to do the operation on this line. We got a connection to the CRM organization service dot create follow-up. That is nothing but this task we created. So the CRM service will create a task which is linked to this account ID. Yeah, and also we are writing that information whatever we have done into tracing service dot trace. That means whatever we have written here, saying that follow-up plugin creating the task activity. So this line you can write anywhere, even when something is successful, even when is something failure, we are also writing like that. Here we are writing the success message, here we are writing the failure message. So everything will be added to the tracing service that you can refer later. So this is about the plugin code. This is how we will develop a plugin, simple plugin. So now what we can do is let's develop that plugin. For that I will open up Visual Studio. So what I am going to do is I am going to create a new project. Yeah, and we need to go to the Visual Studio, the templates, go to Visual Studio, then there you need to select class library. Basically a plugin is nothing but a class library. It will not have an interface, it will run at the backend. So I'll select class library as the type, then I'll give a name. That means sample plugin attempt 1. Yeah, then I click create, so project will be created. Then after that what I need to do is the first step first. To our project we need to add some references to the DLL. The first one you are going to add is, we can browse and we can add the xrm.sdk.dll from the bin. Yeah, so I can directly browse it from here. I can go to the folder where SDK is saved, SDK bin, it will have that SDK. Yeah, I can add it, it will be added here. Then there is one more I need to select, which is nothing but service model, that is system.service model, that is a .NET system.service model, that is a .NET assembly. Then I add, so this both DLLs will be added here, then I need to use them here using system.service model first and the Microsoft one, Microsoft.xrm.sdk. Yeah, we added this one. So this is a namespace that we have given, and here I need to mention the name of it. So I will mention follow up a plugin. Yeah, then I need to add the logic over here. So you can directly copy and paste it here. Yeah, it may throw some errors, so never mind. So here we need to use our iPlugin interface. This will comes from xrm.sdk.sdk. Yeah, then here we have an error. Why? Because of the wrong object. Yeah, so we develop it, right? After that we need to build it. It will fail because there is a this is a very common error. Why? Because the project we are going to create is of different type. The .NET version of the Visual Studio that we are using will be different. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to go to the project properties. Sometimes we need to select 4.52. We have to save it. Yeah, so there is one more DLL we need to add. We will add it. CRM dot runtime serialization. We'll rebuild it. Okay. We'll add system dot runtime dot serialization. This is the one. Here we go. So the build has succeeded. That means the DLL will be created. So how will you find out the DLL now? So now we have done the development part. So we need to find out the DLL created for it. So we'll right click on the project, go to open folder in File Explorer. So this going to the Visual Studio folder, right? The project folder, and this is a project file, and we have a bin folder. Within bin you can see there is one DLL file created just now, and there will be a PDB, program debug file. This is used for debugging purpose. We need it when we are debugging it. Okay, so this is the DLL we are going to register with the CRM system. Okay, so yeah, so now normally when we'll do the debugging at the development machine and testing machine, right? We normally don't do the debugging in the production. So after you finally have done all the debugging, you need to change the mode to release, right? And you need to rebuild again. So what is the difference of these two is, this is nothing with the .NET concept. Once you make it to release, that you cannot debug. The code which is in the DLL is in the release mode, which will be lighter, but you cannot debug it. So here you can see there is one more DLL created under the bin release folder. Yeah. So as long as you debug it, you need to make the mode as debug, and whenever it is ready to put it into the production environment, you need to make it to release mode and debug it again, and you take that DLL. Yeah, that's the difference of debug and release DLL.